Hi, everybody. So, welcome to this success story session. And I'm going to be talking a little bit about how I came to use ADAPT and how I continue to use ADAPT. So, just as a means of an introduction, my name is Sarah Harmon. I am the OER and ZTC program manager at Kenyatta College, which is in Redwood City, California. That's the San Francisco Bay Area, for those that don't know. I also am an adjunct lecturer or adjunct professor in linguistics. And for many, many years, I also was a professor of Spanish or adjunct professor of Spanish here at Kenyatta and many other places. Um, so hopefully everybody can hear me. Go ahead and use the chat, use Q&A. And I even have, oh, awesome, I see the thumbs up. And I have a couple questions in the polls as well. Um, One having to do with just what kinds of platforms your campus uses, whether you are K-12 or higher ed, doesn't matter. Um, and I also wanted to know, just in curiosity about Adapt right now, but feel free to come back to that poll, the second question, and adjust as you need. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to share my screen. As I said, I am somebody who, let me do this. Let's do this one. So I'm somebody who has multiple roles. I wear multiple hats, and one of those hats is an OER author. So I am part of the team of Spanish professors in the California community colleges that has put together a number of open educational resources using both LibreTexts, the textbook side of the house, as well as ADAPT. In fact, if you go into the Humanities bookshelf and you go under languages into Spanish, if you click on the first year textbook shelf and you scroll currently, it is all the way down at the bottom, you'll see the instructor guide for Tarea Libre, which is our first year collegiate Spanish homework ancillary, and it is a series of 1,400 interactive questions, all but pretty much almost all of them using Adapt. In fact, that is how I got started using Adapt. Is we were starting to write Tarea Libre, and the we in this case is Christina Moon, Alejandro Lee, Nancy Melendez Ballesteros, and myself. We were the group that put together Tarea Libre. We had started out using Libre Studio, which is their H5P platform, but then Delmar Larson told us, hey, Adapt is coming online. You might want to consider switching. And boy, did we. We wrote out of the, I believe, 14 chapters that we have, we wrote all but the first 3.5 using just Adapt native question types. From there, in fact, I'm going to go back a screen and go to the second year bookshelf. We continued with the second year collegiate courses and an entire homework ancillary 100% on Adapt, and that is Tarea Libre 2, and you see it here. And in fact, our latest piece that we just finished was Entrada Libre. We updated the second year grammar manual for Spanish. So but that's on LibreText side. We're going to talk only about ADAPT today. So I have been using ADAPT pretty regularly, both in my Spanish courses. I stopped teaching Spanish about a year ago, but I had been using it pretty consistently for the last 4 years. And I also have been using it in my introductory linguistic course for the last 3 years. As I said, I teach at a California community college, and what that means is, of course, we are on Canvas. And I say, of course, because I think many people, many collegiate systems have wholesale moved over to Canvas, although there's a number of representations out there. So I noticed in the poll, so far 21 have voted. Please continue to vote. And out of 21, 19 are on Canvas. So that's pretty pretty understandable, right? Most of us are probably on Canvas. I saw one vote for Blackboard and one vote for other, which I misspelled other, and I apologize on that, but it's okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show it to you on Canvas, but I'm also going to show you behind the scenes a little bit with respect to what I have done on Adapt. So I'm going to start with my linguistics course because it's the most recent version. The only thing is that when I did this course last, which was fall 2025, so almost a year ago, I was piloting the use of the Forge, and it had not been fully integrated into Adapt yet. So you're going to see a little bit of a tweak there. Um, but hey, come to my session tomorrow, and I will tell you everything about the Forge as far as big updates and whatnot. So but what I would do is I would always set things up in my adapt instance first, and I'll talk more about that in a second. And then when it was time to go ahead and make the link to my Canvas course, I did. And upon doing that, it drops it into your assignments. All the things that you have set up in Adapt and have published, they show up in Canvas or Blackboard or whatever you're using, and you can manipulate it from there, meaning you can move it into certain modules. And I would always, as best practice, I would always tell my students when something was going to adapt. So you'll see in the title of the assignment, I would go in Canvas. So once the adapt assignments populate into Canvas, I would go in and I would reword the title just slightly to add that adapt in parentheses in the title. And that way my students always understood they would be working in adapt for that assignment. This is just standard best practice. It helps students understand um, exactly what they're doing. It's somewhat connected to universal design for learning. So for the linguistics course, I use adapt for the weekly journal. In fact, I use discuss it specifically as the question type. I have a number of self-checks for each module. Each module is approximately 1 to 2 weeks, depending on the chapter. And those self-checks are purely optional. It's a great way for students to test their knowledge before they go take the module quiz. The module quizzes are in Canvas just because the California community colleges, for a number of our accreditation needs, certain assessments do kind of need to be in Canvas to be able to show regular and substantive interaction. And I find the Canvas quizzes sometimes are a little bit easier for them to see this in an audit. But certain other things like a discussion forum, I can showcase a number of elements through Canvas, and I'll come back to that in a minute. So for the other thing to point out, like I said, while in this course I did not do the Forge through Adapt because it wasn't available to me, I did in fact use the Forge for this course, and going forward, I will be, again, it will say whatever the draft is and then say adapt in the title. For my Spanish courses, apologies for those that don't understand Spanish, not necessary right now, but maybe it's your cue to go take Spanish. I don't know. But certainly we can, you see the same thing where in the title, I would purposely put in the adapt label in the title. I used adapt again for discuss it for a certain kind of like journal conversations. I call them más allá, or going beyond. I also use it for grammar assignments because at that point, Tarea Libre 2 was in session. It was published, which meant well, actually, I was starting to use it early so we could test them out with our students. But you get the point where I was using those questions from Tarea Libre 2. I was pulling them into my own, I was copying them into my own Canvas or Adapt course shell and then connecting to my my Canvas course shell. I also had optional exercises as well. Again, it's all pretty straightforward. The one thing that I do regularly do, and I'll do this in the English side so that you can see, is when a course is set up on Adapt and then linked to Canvas, all that students see is basically, if they were just to click that link, it would be a pretty blank bit of information. So what I always would do is go into the assignment settings, and I would just add basic language. And this is something I always have, like word templates of basic canned language that I'm going to put on all of my pages. Again, something that's very helpful for our students to be able to understand the task at hand and what they need to do. So just a basic description as far as how to connect, what do you have to do? Click the button, it's really all it is, and tell them a bit of evaluation information. And that is all I would ever do. In my adapt setting, this is where things get to be fun. And I say fun because for those of us that are distance education experts, meaning we've been doing this a long time and we've taken a bunch of courses and seminars and trainings and all the things, one of the frustrations with Canvas, with Blackboard, with any of these LMS setups is so many of the cool and fun things are not necessarily accessible. So when we have to go and put our course through an accessibility check, which many colleges and universities do require, at least on some kind of regular basis, we put all this time and effort into options and then find out that we really can't use them, or we have to find workarounds. And it was such a pain to be able to have to take out options and have very plain question types. This is where I think Adapt is revolutionary in so many ways. Before the accessibility requirements were put upon us, and even though we were given deadlines from earlier this year, technically they had been put in place a while ago. Um, One of the great things that we as a writing team, when we were putting together Tarea Libre, one of the things we really loved about Adapt was the fact that the native question types were widely accessible. So we got back the drop down menus. We got back matching questions. And as new native question types have come on, they've gotten more fun, more engaging. So students actually like taking well, okay, take that with a grain of salt. I won't say they like taking it, but it's interactive in ways that engage with them. Certainly, the discuss a question type, which myself and Christina Moon, we were part of the development of that. We were giving them the ideas at LibreText to come up with this question type. We were the first ones, one of the first ones to test it out. The discuss it question type alone is amazing. It really does up the game with respect to student engagement on all of these types of discussion journal like questions. It really does enhance everything. So the way I usually do it is I set up something as a base and I will eventually call it an alpha. So you see that little alpha letter there, the Greek letter alpha. And that means that that is my base for that course. And then from there, I'll just make copies of that. And any changes I make to my alpha. You'll notice that for my Spanish 130, 140, I've got some that are live that are viewable in the public, and you can always search in the comments. You can search my name and you'll find them. The linguistics one isn't fully ready yet because I will be adding the Forge directly through there. I haven't done it yet, so I will be soon. And that will be, again, available soon. Um, One of the other things that I truly enjoy using Adapt for, as I said, is student engagement, but in innovative ways. So I like Discussant, I like the Forge, I like even showing as extra credit assignments. I will say, hey, I'm looking to update this kind of a question. What are some of your ideas? And my students have given me ways, especially for the linguistics course, ways to adjust either the wording or hey, instead of it being a multiple choice question, what if you could do these kinds of options? And I engage with my students on these conversations, and I, sorry for the horrible pun, but I adapt my questions and my assessments in different ways because of it. It has allowed me to think about what could my students want to do if I want them to hit a certain outcome or a certain goal. How can I do it in ways that are more interactive? Now that we have the Forge fully embedded into Adapt, that's even more of an incentive to use these kind of options. I do have a background in universal design for learning, so the fact that Adapt allows for wide accessibility, wide construction as far as how you put together your questions, and it is easy for students to follow. It really has made a huge difference in my it used to make a huge difference in my Spanish classes. As I said, I stopped teaching Spanish about a year ago when I came into this management position, but I continue to teach linguistics, and it continues to address a lot of those needs as well. So with that, I know there were some questions in the chat and I think in the Q&A as well. And I saw a couple, but I don't know if things have been answered. I haven't been able to look at the chat. I apologize. Um, so
I think we got most of the questions answered in the chat, and there were
okay.
no Q&A questions. Uh, Dalmar, if you wanted to chat about any of the specifics, there we can. I can bring you on stage. Oh, in case he wants to address any of the things that he was chatting about in there. This question, I don't think there's a way to see the student view in Canvas for assignments. You will actually view, everyone will view all the assignment questions in Adapt. So even when there's a link in Canvas, you'll click it. Even as an instructor, you'll go to Adapt. And there is a student view in Adapt.
And one of the things I used to do, especially in my like orientation or introductory videos or my explainer videos, is at San Mateo Community College District, we have certain fake student accounts, and I would add a fake student to my Canvas shell. And that way I could enter Adapt as the fake student and be able to show students literally what it should look like on their end. I was able to do something like that.
I did launch the survey. Feel free to fill it out. There's another question here. I think Delmar can answer this one pretty quickly. Delmar, you need to.
What does direct integration mean? So you don't. So it's not deep linking. You're not going out to our platform.
Let me.
I keep on expecting people to be able to respond, but this platform doesn't do that. So like Zoom, raw Zoom
Having
does.
having
Yeah.
students create an account. I'm not entirely sure what you mean. Let me see if I can bring you here. Let me see.
I'm wondering if it means like you are in your Canvas shell and you see like the iframe of the
We can we
adapt
can
question.
we can iframe in principle. The uh, we were having some problems where Canvas was not allowing us. So it was a technical issue that we actually just came across yesterday again. It should be possible in order to do that, I believe. So you can. I know that iMath AS basically just has one page that they for a whole assignment. They just basically put them all in one big page, all one massive iframe. That's also doable. One of the concerns I have is the at least in some courses, it's important to have access to things that are outside of that question. Uh, for example, in chemistry, general chemistry, I need to have access to a set of resources that are in the back, tables of various thermodynamic properties and that in order to be able to solve these things. If I operate exclusively outside of ADAPT and I just embed it right into that, it doesn't provide that opportunity. I can make it a hyperlink that you then go back out, but if you're already going back out for one thing, why have a mixture between one and the other? Unless you tell me that this is necessary and that you won't use adapt otherwise, then it's not super high on our priority.
I invited Steven up here if he wants to clarify or have a conversation about it. Otherwise,
Yeah, my main question was about when using adapt. My understanding right now is that students will have to either create an account or the classroom will need to be created by the instructor, and that will lead to a lot of individual. Each course would have to theoretically be set up for each classroom, each section, and that nature. Sorry, there's a train going by.
No, that's fine. Let me clarify this a little bit. So the an adapt course can be either an LMS enabled course or non-LMS enabled course. If it's a non-LMS enabled course, then every student needs an account. One of the Libra One accounts that I basically posted into the chat a few moments ago. You need to create the course, you need to create the assignments, and you need to create the questions that go in the source, or at least use them. And you can obviously grab into pre-existing one, and then you're ready to rock. If you make an LMS enabled course like the Canvas, all you need to do is say, okay, here's our course in Adapt that you've already created these assignments. You just click a button, it then goes to Canvas, and then it creates all the modules in Canvas that you then do the deep linking to go out. And it uses authentication from Canvas so that students don't have to make a new account. So they just click on it, it automatically goes over, it automatically processes it, and they're ready to collect data.
and
And that's
Steven, if you go to the next session, we're going to walk through all of that too.
some of that. I don't have access to an LMS in order to be able to demonstrate that because my campus is unique. It's not unique. It's all big campuses are more of a pain in order to process than small campuses. So I think I addressed your question, Stephen. If not, I'm certainly able to talk about it a little bit later on today. We've encountered lots of issues in various ways that I think is what you're dovetailing into, and we have several guardrails in order to be able to facilitate that. So.
All right, with that, I think we should probably wrap this up, but definitely attend the next Adapt session if you're interested in building that first course and finding other courses. Cheryl just mentioned, can you create one that's non-LMS just so that other people can use it? Absolutely. And Delmar is going to walk through a lot of our library of pre-built courses that you can import and then use them with LMS or without.
And make sure you get a Libra One account because it's going to be a hands-on thing. So I'm not going to be nearly as polished as what Sarah went through.
Hopefully you went and shared with Jennifer before to make sure that's all done. Otherwise, everyone should stick around, and pretty soon you'll see a pop-up for a serendipity session where we're going to meet people in our own local regions, and I will see you then.